Welcome to our deep dive into social media strategies.
Sounds exciting.
We're going to explore how companies are using social media,
Uh-huh.
not just for, posting and tweeting,
Right.
but to connect with their customers,
Yeah.
build their brands,
Okay.
and even come up with new ideas for products.
Interesting.
And to help guide our discussion today,
Okay.
we have a whole stack of case studies
Oh, very.
from Christopher Holloman's book,
Uh-huh.
The Social Media MBA in Practice.
Oh, cool. I am familiar with that one.
So buckle up.
Yeah, you picked some really fascinating examples. Thanks. What really strikes me is how companies are going way beyond the basics.
Oh, really?
We're going to see how they've taken on challenges like engaging in these really tough online environments
Wow.
and managing quality control at a global scale.
Hmm.
They're even turning customer service upside down.
Oh.
They're making it more of a community effort.
Interesting. Okay, well, let's jump right in.
That's good.
One thing that jumps out to me is this idea of getting everyone on board with social media,
Yeah.
especially in a big company
Uh-huh.
or a really traditional industry that hasn't been online that much.
Absolutely. Take Nationwide Building Society, for example.
Okay.
They're in financial services,
Right.
which is a really highly regulated industry.
Yeah.
And one wrong step on social media could have huge consequences.
I see.
So to really get everyone on board, they formed this cross-departmental social media forum.
So instead of it just being like the marketing team's responsibility,
Right.
they got people from legal, PR, HR, customer service.
Exactly.
Everyone had a say.
Everyone was in the room from the start.
I like that approach.
And it was crucial because it really addressed any concerns up front. It made sure everyone was on the same page about the strategy.
Yeah.
And it really fostered a sense of shared responsibility for social media.
So it wasn't just seen as like a marketing tactic,
Exactly.
but like a company-wide initiative.
Yes. And it also meant they could create a strategy that was innovative, but also complied with all those strict industry regulations.
That makes sense. Especially for finance, where reputation is so important.
Exactly. And this is an approach that companies in any industry can benefit from.
Oh, surely.
If you're in a company where social media adoption's been a bit slow,
Uh-huh.
getting buy-in from all of these different departments can not only help reduce risks,
Yeah,
but it can also lead to more creative and well-rounded strategies.
that makes a lot of sense. Now, Honda Motor Europe had a different challenge.
Okay.
They needed to manage social media across a really diverse range of products
Yeah.
and across all these different European markets.
Right.
So how did they tackle that?
Well, they realized that one-size-fits-all approach just wouldn't work.
Right.
So they set up what they call a center of excellence.
Okay, break that down for me. What is a center of excellence?
It's not like a physical place where all the social media experts sit. It's more about having a central hub for best practices, for strategic guidance,
Okay.
and for measurement tools.
Gotcha.
So that ensures consistency across the entire brand.
Uh-huh.
But it still allows local teams to customize their content and campaigns
To their specific market.
to their specific audience.
So it's like they have the central brain,
Yeah,
but with all these flexible limbs that can adapt to different environments.
that is a perfect analogy.
Well,
And it really underlines this key principle we see throughout these case studies,
which is,
finding the right balance
okay.
between that centralized control
Uh-huh.
and local autonomy.
Makes sense.
It's absolutely crucial for large organizations to find that balance.
When they're navigating the complexities of social media.
Exactly.
So we've seen how companies can get buy-in and align on strategy.
Right.
But what about the actual purpose of using social media?
Yeah, a lot of companies fall into this trap of thinking social media is just for marketing. But Macmillan Cancer Support totally flipped that idea on its head.
Okay, how so?
They decided to embrace social media as a tool for everyone in the organization.
So it's not just about promoting products and services.
No.
It's about empowering every employee to be an advocate.
Exactly. From the interns all the way up to the CEO.
Wow.
Everyone at Macmillan got social media training.
I'm curious, do they have any specific guidelines
Oh, yeah.
for how employees should be engaging online,
Absolutely.
especially given the sensitive nature of their work?
They really emphasize professionalism,
Uh-huh.
empathy, and respect in all their interactions online.
Okay.
So while they encouraged people to share their personal perspectives,
Yeah.
they also made it very clear what the guidelines were around things like confidentiality,
Right.
data privacy,
Uh-huh.
and just general appropriate online conduct.
So they found that balance between giving employees a voice,
Right.
but also protecting the organization's reputation.
Yep.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, F5 Networks takes a slightly different approach.
Okay.
They really show how different departments can leverage social media
Yeah.
for their own specific goals.
They have this technical community website called Dev Central,
Okay.
and they use social media to connect experts in their field
Uh-huh.
and encourage a kind of shared learning environment.
So they're using social media for knowledge sharing
Yeah,
and community building within a specific niche.
exactly. And it makes a lot of sense, especially in the tech world where things change so fast.
Right.
But F5 didn't stop there.
What else did they do?
Their HR department actually uses LinkedIn for recruitment.
Oh, interesting.
And they've seen some pretty impressive cost savings compared to traditional methods.
So they're finding talent,
Yeah.
building their employer brand,
Uh-huh.
and saving money all at the same time.
Exactly. It's a win-win-win.
I like it.
And then, of course, you have their marketing team, using blogs and Twitter for the more traditional activities like customer education and driving traffic to their website.
So it's a great example of how one company can leverage different platforms
Right.
for different purposes
Uh-huh.
and really align their social media strategy with the specific goals at each department.
Absolutely.
Okay, so we've seen companies tackle those internal challenges
Right.
and align social media with their different departments.
Yeah.
But what about navigating the external landscape of social media?
Okay.
What about companies that are operating in these really hostile online environments?
The Israel Foreign Office has a really compelling case study here.
Yeah.
They're actually using social media and specifically their Arabic language Facebook page
Wow.
as a tool for diplomacy in a region that's, full of tension and conflict.
That's bold.
Oh.
What's their approach and how do they deal with the negativity that's bound to come up?
Their main focus is on engaging directly with Arab audiences.
Okay.
They're trying to provide information about Israel and foster a dialogue,
Despite all of this,
despite facing criticism and even some really hateful comments.
that takes guts. So are they just ignoring those negative comments?
Well, it's a delicate balance. They're definitely not shying away from difficult conversations,
Uh-huh.
but they're also not getting into those, online shouting matches.
Yeah.
They respond thoughtfully to genuine questions and concerns,
Yeah.
but they also set clear boundaries against hate speech and personal attacks.
It's about being firm but fair,
Yeah.
informative but not preachy.
Right.
Okay, it sounds like they're giving a masterclass in navigating a tough online environment,
They're definitely walking that tightrope.
maintaining that balance of engaging authentically
Yeah.
while also protecting their brand.
It's a skill that's becoming more and more important.
I can imagine.
As more and more companies find themselves in these really polarized online spaces.
Now let's shift gears a little bit and talk about the power of content.
Yeah, right.
And when I think about content, I immediately think about creativity and standing out from the crowd.
Yeah,
And that's what Confused.com did so well in the insurance market.
absolutely. The Driving in Heels campaign is a great example.
I remember that one.
Yeah, it generated so much buzz
Uh-huh.
and drove a ton of traffic to their website.
They tackled this kind of quirky, relatable topic
Right.
that you wouldn't normally expect from an insurance company.
It totally disarmed you.
Yeah, it made you think, oh, these insurance folks aren't so stuffy after all.
Exactly. They understood that in a world that's completely saturated with content,
Mm-hmm.
you have to grab people's attention,
Yeah.
you have to evoke emotion,
Right.
and you really need to be memorable.
So it's not just about creating content.
No.
It's about creating content that really resonates with your target audience.
Right.
And makes you stand out.
Absolutely.
Okay, well, what about companies that aren't selling flashy products or running quirky campaigns?
Yeah.
How do they use content to their advantage?
We'll look at GiftDAF.
Okay.
This mobile network provider took a really radical approach to content.
Right.
They made their customer service community-driven.
Wait, what? Community-driven customer service? How does that work?
They built this really vibrant online forum
Uh-huh.
where the members answer each other's questions.
Oh, wow.
So they don't just rely on a traditional call center.
So they're essentially crowdsourcing their customer support.
Exactly. And it might sound a bit wild,
Yeah.
but it's actually been incredibly effective.
Did it actually work?
They've seen faster response times,
Wow.
lower costs,
Ah.
and really high customer satisfaction.
That's amazing. It's like they turn their customers into this amazing support network.
It is this.
But weren't they worried about quality control
Of course they were.
or the spread of misinformation within the community?
Yeah, so to address those concerns, they had a pretty robust system in place
Okay.
with community moderation and clear guidelines. And they also had this point-based reward system. Oh,
To
interesting.
incentivize helpful contributions.
Oh, that's a good idea.
And of course, they made sure that trained staff were always available to step in if needed.
Right.
So that was especially important for complex or sensitive issues.
So they created this really interesting balance of community empowerment
Right.
and professional oversight,
Yeah.
which allowed them to harness the collective knowledge of their user base while still maintaining quality and accuracy.
Exactly.
That's so clever. It's like they created this self-sustaining ecosystem of support where everyone benefits.
It is.
I bet other companies are watching this model closely
They definitely are.
and thinking about how they can adapt it to their own businesses.
It's a game changer. It really highlights how content,
Yeah.
and in this case, user-generated content within a forum can be this really powerful driver of customer satisfaction and brand loyalty.
Now let's talk about another innovative approach to content.
Okay?
Using social media data to proactively identify and address issues. Right. Sony Mobile is a great example here.
Okay.
They're using social media for something they call global issue detection.
So they're not just passively watching social media feeds.
Wow.
They're actively looking for signs of trouble.
Exactly. They're monitoring conversations in multiple languages
Wow.
to identify product or service problems before they become a bigger issue.
So they're not waiting for customers to come to them with complaints.
Exactly.
They're out there looking for those early warning signs.
It's like having a global early warning system powered by social media chatter.
That's really impressive. But how are they sorting through all that data?
Yeah, that's the key. They're using a combination of human analysts
Okay.
and some really sophisticated AI tools.
Ah.
So they have these social listening platforms that use things like natural language processing and sentiment analysis.
To identify those potential problems.
Exactly.
And then the human experts can step in to assess the situation and figure out what to do. So they're using the technology to flag the problems,
Yeah.
and then the humans to figure out the solutions.
Exactly. And this approach lets them improve quality control, manage their brand reputation,
Okay.
and even anticipate potential issues
Wow.
before they become widespread.
So they're using social media to listen,
Yeah.
learn, and get ahead of problems before they spiral out of control.
It's very proactive.
That's really impressive.
Yeah.
But what about companies that are selling products that are very visual?
Yeah. Good point.
How are they using social media to their advantage?
Getty Images is a great example.
Okay.
They've actually turned their product, which is stunning visuals, into a social media powerhouse with something they call the feed.
I'm all ears. What's the feed?
It's a platform that curates real-time content
Okay.
for Facebook, Twitter,
Okay.
and they even have their own dedicated trending app.
Interesting.
They're constantly analyzing current events, trending topics.
Social media conversations.
Right.
And then they deliver these really engaging visuals to users
Okay.
at the exact moment that they're most interested in that topic.
So they're not just posting random pictures.
No, they're not.
They're really tapping into the social media landscape and riding that wave of what's hot and trending.
Exactly. It's all about understanding the power of visual storytelling on social media and making sure you're delivering the right content at the right time to the right people.
This is blowing my mind. We've seen companies use social media to get buy-in,
Yeah.
to align their departments, navigate those hostile environments online, and create content that grabs attention and solves problems.
It's amazing.
And it seems like the companies that are having the most success
Yeah.
are the ones that are willing to think outside the box
Right.
and really experiment.
It's all about innovation.
Now, in the next part of our deep dive.
We're going to explore how companies are using social media for crowdsourcing and collaboration.
That sounds interesting.
We'll see how they're leveraging the power of the crowd to generate ideas, solve problems, and drive innovation.
Can't wait.
Let's find out.
Let's do it. So we've talked about getting everyone on board and finding that balance between control and freedom. But how about really tapping into the power of the crowd? Not just your customers, but your own employees.
That's where crowdsourcing and collaboration come in.
Exactly. We often think of crowdsourcing as getting input from customers, which is great.
Yeah.
But PwC is showing us how valuable it can be to tap into the collective intelligence of your employees. They have this platform called One.
One. Is that like a social network or something?
It is in a way, but it's specifically designed to gamify idea generation. So instead of having those typical brainstorming sessions,
Oh, yeah.
employees can submit ideas online, comment on each other's suggestions, and vote on the best solutions, all in a fun and engaging environment.
I love that. Turning problem solving into a game.
Right. It's brilliant.
But how do they make sure the best ideas don't just get lost in the shuffle?
That's where the gamification part really shines. They've got a system of points, badges, and leaderboards.
So you get rewarded for contributing good ideas.
Exactly. It really encourages participation and recognizes those valuable contributions. And to make sure things stay on track, their senior leaders actively monitor the platform and provide feedback.
So it's not just a total free-for-all.
No, there's structure there. And the results are impressive. They've seen a huge increase in employee engagement, a wealth of creative solutions to client problems, and overall, just a stronger sense of innovation throughout the company.
That's fantastic. Now, Electrolux took this concept of crowdsourcing to a global level with their Innovation Jam, right?
They did. Imagine a 72-hour event where employees from all over the world could submit ideas, collaborate with each other, and vote on the most promising innovations.
Wow, 72 hours. That's a pretty intense jam session. What kind of impact did they see from that?
Oh, the results were phenomenal. Not only did they come up with a ton of great ideas,
Uh-huh.
but employee engagement went through the roof, and their culture of innovation was strengthened across the entire company.
It's amazing what can happen when you unleash that collective creativity.
It really is. And it's not just about the ideas themselves, it's about fostering that sense of ownership and pride within the company.
Speaking of ownership, I want to shift gears a bit and talk about this buzzword we hear all the time,
hmm
social selling. What does that really mean in practice?
ADP is a great example of a company that's doing it right. They realize that these days, potential customers are researching online long before they even think about talking to a salesperson.
Makes sense.
So ADP decided to meet those customers where they are on social media.
But it's not as simple as just telling your salespeople to create a LinkedIn profile.
Right. Definitely not. Social selling is a complete cultural shift, and it takes a lot of commitment to make it work. ADP got buy-in from their top executives, they invested in training programs for their sales team, and they even created this whole resource center dedicated to social selling.
So they went all in.
They did, and it paid off. They focused their training on teaching salespeople how to build genuine relationships online, how to provide value, and how to position themselves as trusted advisors within their networks.
So they're turning their salespeople into these social media influencers.
Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And it's working. ADP has seen a huge increase in leads generated from social media, and their customers now view their sales team as a go-to source for valuable information.
That's awesome. It sounds like social selling boils down to building those authentic relationships, providing value, and becoming a thought leader.
Exactly. And it's not just about closing deals, it's about building those long-term relationships that benefit both the company and the customer.
Now, Dell takes that thought leadership idea even further with their social think tank program.
Oh yeah, they've been doing some really interesting things. They're bringing industry leaders together to have open discussions about key trends and challenges, and in doing so, they're positioning themselves as experts.
So they're not just talking about themselves, they're facilitating those important conversations.
Exactly. And by doing that, they're generating tons of valuable content, they're building relationships with key influencers, and they're strengthening their brand reputation.
It's a brilliant strategy for using social media to elevate their brand and contribute to the bigger industry conversation.
It is. And it reminds us that social media can be this amazing tool for collaboration, knowledge sharing, and community building.
And we can't forget about crisis management. I mean, things can go wrong on social media, and it can happen fast.
Absolutely. And Rentokil Initial's story is a perfect example of how to handle a social media crisis effectively. They had some early missteps with their social media efforts.
Happens to the best of us.
Right. But instead of getting defensive, they took ownership of their mistakes and focused on rebuilding trust.
So how did they actually turn things around? What was their strategy?
They went all in on transparency and authenticity. They shifted their content to be more educational and valuable, and they actually engaged in open dialogue with their critics.
So they didn't shy away from the problem, they tackled it head on.
And it worked. They were able to rebuild their reputation and come out stronger on the other side.
It's a great reminder that even when things go wrong on social media, if you're honest and accountable, you can recover and even strengthen your brand in the process.
Couldn't agree more. And, as we've gone through all these examples, it's become so clear that social media isn't just a marketing tactic or a passing fad. It's fundamentally changing how we connect and do business.
Absolutely. It's about building relationships, fostering those communities, and leveraging the collective intelligence of the crowd.
And when you look closely at these companies that are really successful with social media, you see a common thread running through all their approaches. They're focused on building authentic relationships, encouraging engagement, and providing real value.
I completely agree. Whether it's about engaging customers, empowering employees, or collaborating with other businesses, it always comes back to that human connection.
Exactly. Social media at its core is about making those meaningful connections. Now, I want to talk about a few more companies before we wrap up. One that stands out is Play.com. They really nailed this concept of data-driven social engagement.
Oh, yeah. They were known for that. What was their secret sauce?
They were laser focused on understanding their audience, and they used data to inform their content strategy and measure their results. It wasn't about getting the most likes or followers. It was about getting real engagement that had an impact on their business.
So they figured out how to translate that online buzz into actual, tangible results.
Precisely.
Okay, what about companies that aren't selling something super flashy or exciting? How do they make social media work for them?
We'll take Hobart, for example.
The kitchen equipment company.
That's the one. They sell commercial kitchen equipment, which isn't exactly the most glamorous product.
Not something you typically see going viral.
Right. But they really understood their target audience. Independent bakeries, restaurants, and chefs. They realized that these people were passionate about cooking from scratch.
They tapped into that pre-existing passion.
Exactly. They created a social movement called Get Back to Scratch, which celebrated this whole philosophy of cooking from scratch. And it worked.
I bet it resonated with their audience.
It did. They positioned themselves as thought leaders in the culinary world. They built relationships with potential customers, and they generated a ton of positive buzz for their brand.
It's a reminder that no matter what you're selling, you can find a way to connect with your audience on an emotional level and build a community around those shared values.
Now, one more example I want to touch on is Alliance Your Cover.
They're a UK insurance provider, right?
Yep. And they faced this huge challenge of launching a brand new brand in a market that was already crowded.
Insurance is a tough market to crack, especially for a new player. How did they use social media to stand out?
They created a really smart, multifaceted strategy.
Give me the details.
They focused on creating content that was actually useful and engaging, content that addressed the pain points their target audience was already experiencing. And they were really savvy with their ad campaigns.
Making sure they reach the right people.
Exactly. But one of the most important things they did was make social media their main channel for customer service and engagement.
So they weren't just broadcasting messages. They were really listening to their customers and responding to their needs.
Exactly. They understood that in today's world, people expect brands to be responsive on social media, so they used their social channels to provide information, answer questions, and resolve issues quickly. It really set them apart.
It sounds like they made a conscious effort to be more human and approachable on social media, which I think is really smart, especially in an industry like insurance.
It was a brilliant move. They understood that building trust is everything when you're a new brand trying to gain a foothold in a competitive market. Now, before we move on, let's talk about companies that operate in more traditional offline industries, like sports and entertainment.
Those are interesting ones because they're not selling a physical product in the same way.
Right. Take the NHL's Minnesota Wild, for example. They're using social media not just to engage with fans, which is important, of course, but they're also using it as a source of data and insights.
Data and insights from social media. How does that work?
They're monitoring social media conversations to understand how their fans are feeling, what they're talking about, and to spot any potential issues before they become big problems.
So they're using social media as this giant listening device.
That's a great way to put it. And they use this data to inform all sorts of things, from their marketing campaigns to the way they manage things on game day.
It's like they're creating a feedback loop where the fans are directly contributing to the team's success.
It is, and it just shows how powerful social media can be as a tool for gathering information and making data-driven decisions. Now, I know we're running out of time, but I can't let us wrap up without talking about the future of social media. I'd love to hear your thoughts on where things are headed.
Oh man, that's a big question. But I'm definitely excited to see what happens next.
Me too. I think we're going to see even more personalization and interactivity. Brands are going to use social media to create these really immersive virtual experiences.
So less static content and more interactive, dynamic experiences.
Exactly. And we're going to see a lot more focus on AI-powered features like chatbots and virtual assistants that can provide real-time support and guidance to customers.
It sounds like the lines between the physical world and the digital world are going to continue to blur.
Absolutely. And I think with all this increased power comes greater responsibility. Ethical considerations are going to become even more important in the world of social media. We're going to see more emphasis on protecting people's data, combating misinformation, and promoting responsible social media use.
It's an exciting and challenging time to be in the world of social media. I can't wait to see what the future holds.
Me neither. And for our listeners, I encourage you to think about your favorite brands and how they're using social media. What are they doing well? What could they do better? And most importantly, how can you apply those lessons to your own work or your own personal brand?
That's a great question to ponder. Social media is a powerful tool, but it's the people who use it that make the real difference. So keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep connecting. We've covered a ton of ground already, from buy-in, the content strategy, to crisis management. But before we wrap up, I'm really intrigued by HCL Technologies. They've got this employees first, customer second philosophy that they've actually woven into their social media approach.
It sounds kind of counterintuitive, right?
It does.
But their results are pretty amazing. They've built these really innovative internal platforms like their social network called Meme.
So it's like their own private Facebook, just for employees.
It's more than that. Think knowledge sharing, brainstorming, even using it to crowdsource solutions for tough business challenges.
They're using social media to empower their employees.
Exactly. And tap into all that collective brain power. They've seen huge cost savings, improved morale, even generated millions in revenue from employee-led projects that started on this platform.
That's a powerful example of how social media can be a force for good, both inside a company and out in the world when you're connecting with customers.
I couldn't agree more. Now, as we wrap up this deep dive, let's step back and think about the big picture. What are those key takeaways that stand out after looking at all these different cases?
Yeah, let's distill those golden nuggets of wisdom. What's the most important thing for companies to keep in mind when it comes to social media?
First and foremost, align your social media strategy with your overall business goals. Don't just be on social media because everyone else is. Have a purpose, a clear objective that you're working toward.
Be strategic and intentional. Don't just wing it.
Right. Next, know your audience. Really know them, whether it's chefs, musicians, techies, whoever. Speak their language, understand what they care about, and give them something valuable.
Like, gotta resonate with the people you're trying to reach.
Authenticity and transparency are huge. People can smell a fake a mile away, especially online. They want real connections, honest conversations. The companies that embrace that, they're the ones that build trust and credibility.
It's about being human.
And never underestimate the power of good customer service on social media. It's a megaphone for customers, and they can use it to share praise or tear you down. Respond quickly and genuinely, and you can turn a potential disaster into a chance to build loyalty.
It's all about meeting your customers where they are.
Last but not least, be flexible. Experiment.
Yeah.
The social media world is constantly changing, so what worked last year might not work today. Embrace change, test new things, and never stop learning.
It's all about staying agile and being willing to adapt.
Couldn't have said it better myself.
I think those are some incredibly valuable insights for anyone who's using social media, whether it's for their business or just for themselves.
I agree. And as we wrap up this episode, I want to leave our listeners with this. Think about all the companies we've discussed. What resonates with you the most? What's that one thing you can take away and apply to your own work or your own online presence?
That's such a good question to think about. Social media can be an amazing tool, but it's the people behind it who make all the difference. So keep experimenting, keep learning, and keep connecting.